Okay, so I think we can all agree that weight loss can be a little bit of a minefield at the best of times. So in this video, I'm going to share a load of quick fire tips that may help you, or maybe things that you just haven't really thought of, and definitely helped me in my weight loss journey. And numero uno, we're going to be talking about protein. Specifically, we're talking about protein distribution, or having protein first approach when we're thinking about what meals or snacks we're having throughout the day. Now, we all know there's loads of benefits to having protein. If we're trying to build muscle, that's going to help us long term in maintaining our weight. And without going into too much detail, it just means our body's going to need more energy throughout the day, which means we can eat more, which is always a bonus. However, there is another bonus to having more protein throughout the day, and that is that it's satiating. It's going to keep you fuller for longer. And rather than back-ending all your protein, just having it towards the end of the day, which I think a lot of us are good at, we're quite good at putting protein into our dinners. Think about distributing it evenly throughout the day to help to maintain that satiety throughout the day, so you're not always feeling like you're super hungry and maybe making choices that aren't going to be optimal, and also maximizing your body's ability to actually utilize that protein. So like I said, when you're sitting down to have a meal or you're thinking about a snack, try to have a protein first approach and think about where's your source of protein and then build the meal around that. Number two, we are talking about good old fashioned sleep. Now, there is loads of reasons why not getting enough quality and quantity of sleep is not going to be beneficial for general health, but in terms of weight loss, it is super important and probably often underrated in terms of the significance it can have in so many areas. Now, when we boil it down, weight loss is as simple as energy in versus energy out, but there is so many different individual aspects that are going to have an impact on how easy it is to maintain and manipulate that energy in and energy out equation in your life. Now, sleep quality and quantity is one of those things, and I'm not going to list everything because I want to make this short and sharp, but essentially, if you do not get enough quality and quantity of sleep, you are just going to be making life a lot harder for yourselves. You're going to have higher cortisol levels, you're going to have lower energy levels, you're not going to feel as motivated, you're not going to think as clearly cognitively, and all of these things are just going to make it harder to make the most optimal choices in terms of your nutrition and your training. Now, I know it's boring and it's definitely pot to kettle black, but try to at least have a regular bedtime and have a little bit of sleep hygiene. So if you're going to be going to bed within the next hour, start to step away from your screens. Maybe you want to have a bath or a shower, set your environment up and just signal to your body that you're going to be going to bed, and really aim to try and get that good quality 8-hour sleep a night. Next up, stop focusing so much on exercise. When we look at how our body expends energy throughout the day, there are 4 main ways in which it does that. 2 of those are related to movement. One is what we think of traditionally as exercise. We call this exercise activity thermogenesis, or EAT for short. I know that's a bit ironic. And then the second one is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and that is NEAT for short. Now, when we think about energy expenditure from our bodies throughout the day, most people typically think that exercise burns the most calories and that contributes the most. However, they would be wrong. It is actually non-exercise activity. And when we talk about non-exercise activity, what we're discussing is incidental and non-planned movement that you do throughout the day. This could be as simple as cooking your dinner, going and getting your groceries, going out to the store, or walking around the office. Or it can be as simple as what I'm doing right now, which is using my hands, moving around and fidgeting. Like I say, NEAT actually contributes a significant amount more energy expenditure throughout the day than exercise does alone. And also, there are quite a few other reasons as to why focusing on exercising more might not be the best option in terms of weight loss. But I'm actually going to be making a separate video on that, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. So what does this mean? Just simply try to move more throughout the day. Do not take for granted how much of an impact it can have, just to simply use every opportunity you can to move. Now, we all know things like the classic, try to use the stairs instead of the escalator. Side note, you become what you do. So if you're telling yourself, I'm an active person that takes the stairs, that's always going to be helpful in terms of the long-term sustainability of your weight loss. However, I know it's not always going to be the quickest and easiest option to take the stairs, or maybe it's not going to be ideal because of your mobility or your fitness. In that case, can you take the stairs down instead? Try to think outside the box and just get as much movement into your day as possible. You may be surprised just how much of an impact it can have. Number 4, we are talking about connection. Having people around you, having a social life and maintaining that regardless of what you are doing. It is so important to maintain some normality and to have things that not only make you happy and distract you, but are really fulfilling. Regardless of whether you use them in some aspect as an accountability tool or a support network, having people around you and maintaining social connection is just going to help you to fit your own oxygen mask so you can help others the best you can, and that also includes you. Now, next up, I have talked about this point in a lot more detail in other videos, but addressing the root cause of your weight gain in the first place. A lot of the time, weight gain or having excess weight is not purely down to the fact that you're just eating more. There's usually a root cause. It could be that you're in a relationship that you're unhappy in, that you're not happy with your job, that you're limited on your time, that you're chronically stressed, or many, many more reasons. Now, if you can delve in and really find the root causes as to why maybe you have some of these habits or behaviors that are leading to excess weight, then you can actually start to address those. So can I make some more time for myself? Do I need to manage stress? Do I need to actually sleep a little bit more? Understanding and being able to change these things really is what is going to set you up for the future of being successful with your weight loss. I learned this the hard way. I lost weight, and then afterwards I realized that nothing had really changed. I still wasn't happy, and it was only when I started to really think about those root causes and address those that a lot changed. To be honest with you, in my experience, changing this part is the easy part, and changing this part is definitely the most challenging one, and often the most forgotten about one. So don't forget about your old Swede. Next up, remember that consistency is key, and in reality, that weight loss and maintenance is just a game of averages. You do not need to be on it 100% of the time and then beat yourself up if for one day you don't do so well, or you're not on plan, or whatever it is that you're doing that you deem to be bad behavior. So you want to be able to zoom out, and that's where the game of averages starts to come into play. Consistency isn't doing the same thing over and over at 100% every single day. What it is coming back and doing it on a consistent basis. And that is the key and most crucial way to think in terms of your weight loss. When you push yourself through the self-limiting thoughts of thinking, I've had a bad day and now I've ruined everything, and you start to practice being consistent, you can then rely on that to show that that's the most important aspect and that is the key factor. But until that, you have to grit your teeth and bear it, and remember, this is for the long term and not just look at it on a micro scale day by day. Realistically, you should get a lot of comfort from this point. You do not need to be switched on and 100% every single day. You can have days, weeks, maybe even months where you are completely taking a step back and everything will be completely okay. The key factor is that you come back and that you keep going. When we're thinking about food, think about optimizing rather than restricting. Again, I've made a video on this in the past, but this can be a really great way of switching your thinking around in terms of nutrition. Often when people are on a diet or they're trying to lose weight, they start to restrict or cut things out of their diet. While this can be a useful tool in some regards, it can also lead to an all or nothing mentality, or you can simply feel like you're just depriving yourself, and no one wants to be deprived, and therefore the motivation will only last so long. Instead of just cutting things out and completely being restrictive on your diet, try to approach your meals and snacks with an idea of how you can optimize it. For example, if for breakfast you would usually have like a high calorie, sugary, delicious cereal, is there a way that you can optimize this to make it a little bit more filling, or maybe a little bit more aligned with the goals that you have? So a couple of options are, you could add some fiber-rich fruit in there, and you're gonna get that sweetness in, and that's just gonna fill you up a little bit more, and it's gonna bulk out the meal. Could you add some form of protein into the meal? Again, bumping up the satiety. For example, could you add some Greek yogurt or put some protein powder in the meal? Another option to increase that volume and bulk out that meal a little bit more is, can I mix in a lower calorie and more simple cereal, just that's gonna have a little bit more fiber and a little bit more volume, so I can still have the best of both worlds. I could give you a zillion different examples, but if you can look at optimizing instead of restricting throughout your day in terms of your snacks, your drinks and your meals, can be a great way to foster a really great relationship with your nutrition, but also make sure that you're making it work for you, so you're not feeling hungry, that you're not feeling low energy, and that you're enjoying the foods that you love. While we're talking about nutrition and eating in volume, try bulking out your meals with low calorie and high volume foods, and this tends to be vegetables. If you can add vegetables into your meals, it's just going to go a long way into increasing the volume and that satisfaction that you have, as well as, again, the satiety, because you're going to be getting that fiber in, and a lot of adults actually lack in fiber. So try to bulk out your meals with some vegetables. As an example, if you're cooking with mince, could you dice up some mushrooms or something like that and put it in with your mince, bulking out that volume without having to really add too many calories. Classic one that you've probably seen a million times is adding things like zucchini into your pasta dishes, and again, just bulking out that volume. Through that, you can really increase the volume of the amount of food you're eating, the satisfaction and the satiety. I feel like this one everyone's gonna love to hate, and that is to eat mindfully. This is something that I say to clients all the time, and I have to try and practice myself. But essentially what we're trying to do here is focus on what we're eating rather than eating distracted. There's a couple of reasons why this can be beneficial. Firstly, you're kind of just making an event out of eating and enjoying your food and making sure that you're just appreciating it, thinking about what does it taste like, what does it smell like, what does it even sound like, what's the texture like. Paying attention and focusing on these things in the present are really, really beneficial things just in general. Secondly, it can also help with trying to not overeat, and this is something that I find very easy. If I'm just standing at my kitchen counter eating cereal out of the box while I'm on my phone just scrolling through TikTok or something like that, then it's very easy for me to not realize how much I'm eating. And ultimately what I'm doing is just mindlessly eating food that I don't really need, and probably also ignoring my brain stomach hunger signals. Instead, if you can sit and eat mindfully, focus on what you're eating, actually serve it up into a dish and enjoy that meal, you can not only focus on it and appreciate the food, but you can also use it as an opportunity to practice understanding your hunger signals when you're full and knowing when to stop. I know when you're losing weight, it can feel like the be all and end all, but it is so important to also have other goals. Have things that are completely unrelated that you're working on, or it could be things that are somewhat related, such as an exercise or training goal, maybe a lifestyle habit that you want to make or break. For example, sleep would be a great one, or hydration. Or it could be some type of self-development goal. It could be that you want to be more mindful, that you want to journal more, you want to show more gratitude. Whatever it is, it's important to have other things that you're working towards, because progress is not always linear, as we know, and you're not always going to be progressing in one goal all the time. There's going to be times when you're going ahead, there's going to be times when you're taking steps back, and that is completely normal. But it's in those times that you want to look at the other things that you're achieving in your life, because ultimately we're always all achieving lots of different things, but when we're so focused just on one goal, we can be extremely hard on ourselves, and that is not what we want. So have other goals that you're working towards, things that you're looking forward to, things that you enjoy, things that are challenging to you, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. This one is important. Don't focus on scale weight solely. Yes, the scales can help, and I know it's a really easy metric to be able to go and measure. However, as we all know, and we often fail to remember when we're standing on the scale, that number that you're seeing is reflective of everything in your body. Also, there's a lot of factors that go into changing that number on the scale. Sorry, I keep bringing sleep up, but how well you slept, how inflamed your body is from either training or from what you've been eating, or maybe if you've been sick, what the weather is like, what time of day it is, what you've eaten that day or the night before, how hydrated you are, yada yada. It goes on and on and on. And that is why weighing yourself every single day and putting so much store on that number is sometimes not the best option, or it's just good to be cognizant to take that number with a bit of a pinch of salt. If you want to know that you're making progress over weeks and months, there are so many other metrics that are also going to be useful as well. And remember that progress does not happen in a space of a week or two, but if you want to also know that you are making progress over a period of weeks, months, whatever it might be, then you can look at so many different metrics as well. So we can look at body measurements using a physical measuring tape and seeing if your measurements have changed. Progress photos, I bang on about this all the time. It is such a game changer. I know they're not very nice to take. I know nobody really wants to do it, but I promise you, you will not regret it, because it shows so much more than just changes in your body. It shows things like your energy, the way you hold yourself, your body composition, your posture. So take your progress photos, how your clothes are fitting, what your mood is like, what your sleep quality is like, in general, how you feel throughout the day. All these things are just as important metrics as what the number on the scale says. In fact, I would argue they are way more important. So don't put too much focus on the scale. Yes, weigh yourself if that makes you feel good, it helps you to stay accountable and you like to have the data, but otherwise don't stress too much about what the number on the scale says. Be careful what you consume, and I'm not talking about what we consume in here, I'm talking about what we consume in here and here. What you are surrounding yourself with and all the content and information that you are digesting throughout the day, as well as the people that you spend time with, has a massive impact on how easy it is for you to be consistent, to be motivated, and to have energy. And ultimately, we just want to make things as easy as possible for ourselves. So if there's a way that we can minimize any noise or any negative impact on us, then I think we sure as hell should do it. I've mentioned this loads of times before, but sometimes these things can just simply creep up on us, and we don't realize that maybe what we're seeing on our Instagram feed is having a negative impact on us, because we actually like seeing that stuff on the Instagram feed. But being able to tap into, do I feel good when I come away from that content? Or do I feel good about myself or feel full of energy when I come away from having a coffee with that friend or that person? And knowing whether that's a yes or a no can give you a really good indicator as to whether the stuff that you're consuming or the stuff that you're surrounded by is having a positive or maybe not so positive impact on your life. It's not always about saying you can have a seat at my table and you can't. It's sometimes just going, I know where I'm going to put my energy right now. So tapping into the awareness of what you're consuming and how it's making you feel will have a humongous impact on how you are day to day, and ultimately how easy weight loss is for you. Another mindset one that comes up so much, and that is all or nothing thinking. Now, I am guilty of all or nothing thinking, don't get me wrong, but it's really not helpful. So if something that you can identify and try to work on, then it's going to help you so much in the long term as being able to see this as a lifestyle. And I know that sounds cliche, but I promise you, this is a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix, one-off, 6 month, done. You are making habits that you are going to maintain your entire life, and that's what you want to aim to do. All or nothing thinking comes in many forms. It can be this food is good and this food is bad. I've eaten this food, so I'm good. I've eaten this food, so I'm bad. It can be I did so well yesterday, I did nothing today. Therefore I'm successful, therefore I'm a failure. And these two things are polar opposites. They're right on the extremities. And what we want to try and do is just bring them together and accept that some days are going to be a little bit more on it and some days aren't. Some days we're going to be a little bit more motivated and some days we're not. And all of these things are completely normal. So try to break free of all or nothing thinking and just be a little bit kinder to yourself. Back to eating, we're going to talk about focusing on what you're eating and not so much on how much you're eating. Again, this kind of comes back to, can we bulk this meal out? Can we add some foods that are going to be more satiating or more satisfying in? Once we start thinking about how we can optimize our meals and how that works for our tastes and our lifestyle, it can be a really great tool in terms of minimizing how much you're eating overall and ultimately just bringing you slightly more into a calorie deficit, which is essentially what we want for fat loss. Staying on the slightly more rogue tips, and that is look after yourself. Self-care is super important. And I'm not just talking about doing things that you enjoy and making sure that you carve time out for your friends and your family. I'm talking about just looking after yourself physically, looking after your appearance, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, making sure that you feel like the best version of yourself as much as possible. Again, this is more about just saying, I'm the type of person that wakes up and does these things. And this is the lifestyle that I want to create. And it's not about being completely dolled up. I would not be one to talk. I literally look like a scruff bag half the time. But just making some small efforts to make sure that you feel good about yourself is going to go a long way in terms of making you think, okay, I want to prioritize my fitness. I want to prioritize eating well, and then making sure that I'm feeling healthy and the best version of myself. It's that classic thing of getting some new gym clothes and feeling really motivated to go to the gym. You're basically just doing that, but throughout your day. And while we're talking about ourselves, we're going to go back to the brain and we're going to talk about working on our relationship with ourselves. Firstly, I have experienced this firsthand and I'm still very much working on this. But secondly, I have seen this time and time again, where somebody loses weight and they achieve everything they want to, yet they are still incredibly hard on themselves and still have lots of difficulties and insecurities that are left unaddressed. There is no point in changing this to take up physically slightly less space if you're not also going to work on this and your relationship with your body and yourself. Even if I could wave my magic wand and make you your ideal weight or your ideal body shape right now, I promise you very little would change, especially after a day or two when the novelty's worn off, and you'll just go back to thinking exactly how you think now. You'll still look in the mirror, and body dysmorphia is a real thing, especially if you lose a significant amount of weight. But secondly, all those things that you're insecure about, all the things that you're worried about, they do not disappear when you lose weight. That is an inside job. That comes from working on your relationship with your body and working on your brain. So as challenging as it is, I promise you there is so much importance in working on this. Next one is understanding why you are eating. Now this is more so when you're eating things that you don't feel like are going to be the most optimal towards your goals, but also just in general. Asking yourself, why am I eating right now? And do I need to be eating / what do I actually want to be eating can be really helpful. So sometimes we're just purely eating because we're bored, or we're eating because we're actually thirsty, or we're eating because we're stressed. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't eat in those circumstances. Understanding why you're doing it can help you in the long run to just have a really healthy relationship with nutrition and, for lack of a better word, be more intuitive. On the topic of food, I am sure we have all been guilty of this, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but something to think about, and that is eating whole foods or the real version of foods rather than just trying to buy the low calorie or the fake version of foods. I know that we have all been here where we've bought a fake brownie or we've tried to make a healthy version of it, and it's no bueno. Like, it's not the same thing. And ultimately, a lot of the time what will happen is you will make the healthy version or the lower calorie version, and you will still just want and crave the other one. And then you will go down one of two routes. you will just feel miserable and demotivated, and that will only last for so long before you just go, screw this, I'm gonna pack it all in. Well, the second one is you'll go and eat the actual brownie because that is what you wanted in the first place. So sometimes it makes sense just to eat what you actually want to eat and not to always feel like you have to substitute something for the lower calorie or the healthier option. If you want a pizza, just have a piece of pizza. And instead of making some kind of wrap pizza, which is this thin and is basically not the same thing, just think more about portion control, or even better yet, optimizing that pizza. Can I have a salad with it? Can I have some soup with it? Can I add loads of veggies to the top of it or some extra protein? There are so many different options, and that is going to be a more productive way of thinking in terms of reaching your goals than just going, I'm going to have this measly little wrap with some cheese on top. No offense if you actually do like the wrap pizza cheese situation. I've mentioned this one a few times, and it's something that I use a lot as a tool for myself, and that is kind of using myself as a bit of an experiment. There is no set rule that's going to work for every single person. Like I say, we are all individual with our own individual challenges and inputs in life, and therefore using yourself as an experiment can be a really interesting way of managing and maintaining weight loss. Start to pay attention to the signals and signs that your body is showing you. Do you feel good eating certain foods or in certain patterns? For example, I prefer to not have breakfast, or I prefer to have a really big breakfast, or I feel really good when I have lots of carbs, or I feel really good when I have less carbs. I notice that when I'm dehydrated, or this happening in my life, that I'm doing this. Start to pay attention to your behaviors, your habits, your thoughts, your feelings, and actually start to tinker around with it and take an interest. This kind of thinking can actually be really exciting, and to be honest with you, can really put some fire in your belly to go, oh, what else can I do? What else can I achieve? Whether you take that approach to your nutrition, your training, your mindset, or anything else. You may be shocked by this one, so prepare yourself. I'm going to suggest maybe exercising less. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, this is a case-by-case basis, so I'm just generalizing here. But let's look at a case study. Let's say we have Sarah, and Sarah has started a weight loss journey, and she's decided that she's going to exercise 5, 6, 7 days a week. Now, exercise is great. There are so many benefits to exercise. I am a big proponent to exercising and move my body in lots of different ways every single day. However, we do need to remember that exercise is a form of stress on the body. It's a good form of stress, but it also can have negative impacts as well. And what do we get when we have stress? We get cortisol. And when we have cortisol, and cortisol can have effect in many different ways. Again, what we're thinking about here is not making life too difficult for ourselves and just making it as easy as possible. So if we can minimize stress and minimize that cortisol release, it's going to make it easier for us to not be craving certain foods that might not be optimal in terms of our goals, to not feel like we need to overeat, to have more energy. Additionally, of course, if you're exercising, you're burning energy, and that means that you're probably going to have an increase in hunger, especially if you're doing cardio. Have you ever gone and done a swimming session and afterwards just been absolutely ravenous and want to eat everything in sight? That's what I'm talking about. The more you exercise, the more fuel you need, because your body needs the fuel to be able to maintain that, and that's going to increase hunger. This in turn can then have an impact on motivation. And then a lot of the time we'll go, you know what, you exercise really hard, you deserve a treat, and we end up eating back the calories or overeating to compensate for the exercise that we've done. And it is very hard to estimate how many calories you burn through exercise, so this can be not so beneficial in terms of when we're trying to be in a calorie deficit consistently. Now, I don't want you to get too hung up on it, but it just might be a good opportunity to address, am I exercising too much, or do I really need to be doing this, or is it actually having a negative impact? Like I said, non-exercise activity actually contributes more to your total daily energy expenditure than exercise does. So don't be too hard on yourself. You don't need to be hitting the gym every day, and just enjoy movement in a way that works for you. Okay, so second to last one is having a big picture thinking view. Does that even make sense? I'm not sure if that makes sense. Looking at the bigger picture, be realistic. Things are not going to change in a matter of weeks or months. It took me a good 4 to 6 months before I started seeing any significant progress, and that is quite normal. We all know progress is not linear, it's always going to be fluctuating, and that is completely normal. So focus more on the bigger picture. Try to think outside the box, try to be realistic in your timeframes and your goals, and just don't be too hard on yourself, because the chances are you're doing phenomenally. And my last point is, don't take it all too seriously. I know a lot of us are out there because we want to lose weight because it's going to be beneficial for our health, and there is so much merit with that. I am inherently a much healthier, much more injured version of myself now that I have prioritized weight loss and that I move regularly. But does it mean that the people in my life love me more or less? No, it doesn't. Does it mean that I'm a better or worse person? Absolutely not. So try not to take it all too seriously. We are here for a good time and not for a long time. So please, please, please do not be hard on yourself. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Obviously, these tips are not going to apply for every single person, and they're just things for you to think about or maybe use and try and see if it works for you. Remember, like I said, use yourself as an experiment and just see what's best. Any questions, drop them down below, or you can check out some of the other videos that I've mentioned in this video for more information on those topics. If you want to understand a bit more about the mental side of weight loss and the impact it had on me personally, you can check out this video here. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have the most beautiful day. Bye! Process? Okay, last two. Okay, second to last one is having a big picture thinking view. Does that even make sense? I'm not sure if that makes sense.